Shortly after college, I entered the financial services industry. I love the idea of helping people by teaching them how to get out of debt and invest their money wisely. I also love the idea of making a lot of money while I was doing it. At one of our regional meetings, the most successful man in our area pulled me aside and told me that I had what it takes to make it big in that business. Whether that's true or not, I'll never know, but it sure felt good to hear him say it, and I certainly wanted to believe it. I was young, I was ambitious, I was excited, and it was time to get to work. I wanted to learn as much as I could, as fast as I could, so that I could become as successful as I could as soon as possible. I was really excited to hear then that one of the most successful men in the company was hosting a seminar on how to set goals and succeed. He was exactly who I wanted to be. He broke $1 million per year at the age of 35 and no longer needed to work. He was the epitome of success from company standards and from my standards. He was the dream that was always being fed to us to motivate us to succeed. But I had a complete perspective shift as I listened to him humbly and candidly share with us both his story of success and his current state of loneliness. He shared how he had accomplished the dream at the age of 35. He retired, moved to Florida, and found it fun for a while, but ultimately empty. So at the age of 40, he was now back at work. And then after teaching us how to establish our goals, he told us his current goal in life, his biggest goal, to get married and have a family. This icon of success had wasted his youth filling his time with the busyness of chasing false success, and he had missed out on the things that were far more important. From my perspective in that moment, achieving the dream looked a lot more like living a nightmare. Brothers and sisters, our culture has embraced a false view of success wrapped up nicely in the idol of busyness. We live in a hustle culture that elevates doing more and more and more with no end in sight. Additionally, we live in a culture that has a misperception of what it means to truly succeed. And if we don't slow down and take time to define what true success means for the life that God has given us, we may end up floating through life on the current of our culture, only to look back and realize that we've drifted to a place we never wanted to end up. That's why I'm so excited that you joined us for today's show, because we're going to hear one man's story of how he is enjoying true success in the busyness of life. You're watching One Day Closer, where we're learning together how to use our one day closer to eternity to bring hope and purpose to many. Let's go meet our guest. We're here today with Scott Mckenna, owner of Scaling Creative, to talk about how to find true success amidst the busyness of life. Scott, it's so great having you on the show.
Appreciate it.
I've known you for over a decade now in different capacities through church and through your business. And so I'm excited to have you here to talk about what true success is and how you're enjoying that in your life.
Appreciate you having me. It's a topic that means it's very important. It's
Absolutely.
something that means a lot to me as well, so it's great to be here.
That's awesome, and I think so many people wrestle with it, especially in our culture. So first, let's let our guests get to know you a little better. Tell us about your family, about your work.
Yeah, my name is Scott. I have a beautiful wife named Kelsey. We're celebrating 15 years of marriage already, which makes me feel a little bit older, but it also is great because you don't see a lot of marriages lasting anymore. So I hope that just that alone can be an impact to some people. And I have two awesome kids, 6-year-old and 8-year-old, and as you know with that, that's a whirlwind in itself.
It is. Yeah, we're very similar stages. Our 15-year anniversary is going to be in June as well. Yeah. And then we have, of course, a 10 and a 7-year-old.
It's fun. Talk about busyness.
That's right.
Kids sure give it to you.
That's right. And let's talk about that. So we live in a culture, a hustle culture. Explain a little bit about what that is. It's really just giving verbiage to the reality of what we experience but don't really realize.
Yeah, I mean, I think we live in a culture where if you're not hustling and if you're not working and always busy, right? Anyone you ask how they're doing, the answer is busy. And it's almost like you're not allowed to be free. Like you're not allowed to have free time. It's like it seems lazy to people if you are not currently busy. And I feel like that's just a horrible way to live, because I feel like a lot of people just naturally feel like if they finally find success at home and balance in their life, that people will look at them like, you're not doing anything. You're not succeeding enough. And I feel like it's just because, as we're going to talk about, people haven't defined what that win and success is in their life. And then you just are on this nonstop rabbit hole. The hustle culture, I don't think, has an end. It's the idea of work, like till when? It just doesn't end.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that what we're going for here?
I hope not, right?
No.
It shouldn't be. And that's the question. How does the hustle culture define the win? Because so many of us, it's the air we breathe. So we get caught up in it, but what's the end point?
And I don't think it does define it. I think that's the problem, is the hustle culture doesn't have an expiration. The hustle culture is you just keep working. You work until you, like, it doesn't say like the hustle culture ends here. It just, because you look at everyone, you could be hustling and working your tail off and feeling like you're having success, then you see someone else who is 100 times further than you. Yeah. So you're on this nonstop chase of there's not an end point. And then you eventually live, in my opinion, with regret, because you feel like, what was that all for? Or you have a failed marriage, you have all these things, and it's like, I'd rather know that I'm going to something and when I get there, be content. Like, because it's more enjoyable that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen it. I know you've seen it. I've seen it as a pastor. I've seen it now working with men so frequently. The level of regret, right? Because you look back and say, even in ministry could be an idol too.
Yeah,
there's hustle culture
100%.
in ministry. It's just praised because you're doing good things for God, right? Well, good. I'm excited to learn more about this. We're going to take a quick break, and then we come back. We're going to dive more into Scott's story and some steps for us to get out of the hustle culture and start defining success God's way.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website, lighthousetv.org, for more information.
Welcome back to One Day Closer. We're here with Scott Mckenna, owner of Scaling Creative, and we're talking about how to find true success amidst the busyness of life. So Scott, we've just been talking about how the hustle culture that we live in really idolizes this busyness and chasing the never-ending dream, a reality that's never going to come to fruition, right? So tell me a little bit about, you're a driven person. You've had, I think, 5 businesses at one time as an entrepreneur, right? And so you're not lazy by any sense of the term. Tell me about how you were kind of caught up in the hustle culture when you were doing that, and then how you came to the realization of like, hey, this isn't going to bring it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting journey. And as I was thinking kind of more about this topic, I realized that one of the key things that I did in the midst of starting the hustle culture was I actually started journaling, oddly enough. And what's been interesting about that, I never realized it until literally a couple weeks ago, that I was like, I looked back at journal entries of the beginning of this and the hustling and all that kind of stuff, and then realized, oh, I'm actually what got me out of the hustle culture was I'm where I said I wanted to be a long time ago. Yeah. So why am I still hustling the way that I said I wouldn't once I got to, right? So I think now that I think about that, played a pivotal piece. But yeah, in the midst of it, I mean, I was loving what I do. And I think that's where we can get ourselves in trouble, because we naturally feel like, well, I'm working a lot because I love it. And it's like, I get that. And I loved what I did as well. And I still love what I do. But you have to find balance in life, because just working, it just is unfulfilling. And there's so much more to life. There's so much more to what God has for us, that I feel like we can just get caught in, hey, it's okay because I'm supplying for my family and I'm making money and we have this house and whatever. I'm living the dream. Not necessarily. You're living maybe someone else's dream that they've told you have to live. Yeah. And that's, to me, what the hustle culture does, is say, this is what success looks like. So follow this and keep going.
And keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just found that it just wasn't for me, the nonstop. And I would have never been able to say that 5 years ago. I cannot imagine that I would feel as content and happy not doing so much. Yeah. That's not how I am. If you know me, I'm a driven person that loves new opportunities, love new challenges, but also I really love playing pickleball. Yeah. just having fun,
enjoying life. And I could say very similar. 5 years ago is when I hit a breaking point in my life, completely overwhelmed, started having panic attacks because, and I was in ministry, so I was a pastor at the time. I'm still in ministry now, but in different context. And it was just all about doing more and helping more people and doing more programs and all of this. And so I can say now I'm in a much better place too, for similar reasons than you, in learning how to define my win and things we're going to talk about later.
Yes.
But so you're 38, and I love when we were talking in preparation for the show, you were saying, I'm 38, I feel like I've won the game. Tell me about that. How does that come about?
Yeah, I mean, I recently, over the last 2 years, had an opportunity to potentially sell all of my businesses, make a good amount of money to do it, and basically partner with someone that I really, really like to start a new venture, to basically just do something that I thought would actually have really cool potential. And when I started thinking about it, my wife and I were talking about it, I was like, so let's just play this out, that if it works exactly how we want it to work, what would that look like? And once I played that all out, I was like, so you're telling me after all that, I'd be back to exactly where I am today, having freedom with my time, being able to enjoy time with my family and my wife, and being able to do stuff during the day and not feel like my calendar is always taken up. So why in the world would I start over if I've already hit exactly what I wanted to do? And I think that that's where the journaling side of it was oddly playing a big factor, because I look back and could remember what I told myself I wanted to do and say, God's already given me that opportunity. Why start over now? So it's just been fascinating to kind of see how it's changed my thoughts. It's just really interesting.
And I think so many people, I think we should stop and ask ourselves in every area of life, when is it enough?
Yes.
Right? I don't think we ask ourselves that enough. When is it going to be enough? Financially, when's it going to be enough? Success-wise, when's it going to be enough in different areas? And we typically hear people say, if I had $1 million, I'd do such and such, right? I'd really enjoy life. I'd really do what I want to do. What are your thoughts on just that whole mentality?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you ask most people that, they're really just giving you what they picture would be their dream. And I'm not even talking about the people that are just like, oh, I love to live on a private island. And, that's different.
Right.
Yes, you need maybe $1 million to do that. But I think honestly, when people think about it, when people even think about what retirement looks like, what they're essentially saying that they dream of is the day that they could have other things outside of work to fill their time, right? More time. People always say that they want more time with their family, more time with their kids, more time with this or that hobby. And I really think that people are closer to that than they make it seem. And they just think that there's a dollar amount that gets them there, when the truth is that's definitely not the case. And I think it's just the priorities of where they're putting their time and deciding what is actually a priority and what's not. And until you really define what your success looks like, it's hard to know. There's not a dollar amount on it. I think there's plenty of proof that shows there's a lot of really rich people that are miserable. And there's also people that are living in poverty that you're like, how is that person smiling so much, right? It's just proof that's just not what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts with, as we talked about, let's talk about some of these key things that you've done in your life to get to a place where you feel like, this brought me to a place to understand what true success is, to pull myself out of this hustle culture where it's never enough. And the first one of those things is defining the win. We've talked about that. So thresh that out a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the idea was like thinking about what my win was, what no one else's, just mine. And my win, when I look back before I went full-time into my own business, my win was having flexibility with my time, with being able to serve at the church more, with being able to hang with family more. That was before that was just when I had a 1-year-old, when I kind of started going into that. But I always knew that as we moved forward and as the kids grew up, there was going to be more and more things that I wanted to be able to do. I wanted to be able to, at 11 o'clock in the morning, go see a kid's play at their school because I didn't have to call off work for it. I wanted to be able to have just flexibility to do what random things came about. And so what I started to do is every decision that I would make, I would think about, well, what do I have to do today? What opportunities are coming about that I have to say no to in order to get me closer to that actual win? So that's really been the biggest thing now, is just really reminding myself what my win is. And if what I do is not putting me in that direction, Like, we're all going in some direction.
Right.
The question is, are we trying to go in the direction that God has called us to be, or that we want to go in?
Yes.
Or else you're just going to let the sales push you in their other direction, right?
Yeah.
And the comparison game is real. Like, the comparison trap is a dangerous place. And
absolutely.
we have to be careful of who we're following, because just because we follow someone that is doing something successful, it doesn't mean that behind the scenes they're living a life we want to mirror.
Exactly, right. We only see the facade.
Yes.
And we don't see until years later, you often see the brokenness that was happening. And I know for me, very similar is I learned how to define the win, and that started with writing my eulogy.
Yeah.
What do I want people to say in the most important people in my life at my funeral? And I would do an annual review to look at what my win was. And one of the questions I ask myself in my annual review every year is, what don't I want to regret in 5 years?
Yeah.
And that question made all the difference for my transition out of pastoral ministry. So a good thing, doing ministry, I'm a pastor, but my emotional capacity to have a young family and be a pastor and what was required in both arenas didn't work for me. So I had to make a decision. And I knew, because I had defined my win, I wasn't going to sacrifice my primary ministry, which is my family.
100%.
And so I said a difficult no to something that I loved and appreciated, but God opened a door for something even more amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. That's something we talked about many times, is the idea that when I, naturally as a driven person and new opportunities come my way, in the past it was like, yes, I'll do it. I'll figure it out. Like, I'll just work more. I'll just spend more time doing this. And now I'm kind of like, if I'm going to take on something new, and I have said it will not sacrifice the time with family and with what I want my win to be, then I have to be okay saying it's going to come out of this bucket of time or this bucket of time that's not my family's bucket, because that's not fair to them. And so that's been a big thing too, is just being able to say no to things that don't get you closer to where you want to be, or in my case, stay, right? Now everything I do is like, I want to stay here. So what does that look like? It doesn't mean that I can't work. I have to work, and I have to obviously do the job, but it's like surrounding yourself with people that can help you execute on different things so that you can continue your win is huge. And then if you're an employer, helping your people also realize how important that is to you, and that how important it is for them as well, it hopefully makes you lead people better.
So you're defining your win. We talked about you're learning to say no. I know something for me that was huge in learning how to say no. That's hard for me. I struggle with fear of man or people pleasing, and especially as a pastor. And you get a phone call and somebody says their marriage is falling apart. And I had to learn, somebody said to me, you're always saying no to something, right? So I was like, whoa. So every time I say yes to that phone call, I'm saying no to my family or something else. And I have to decide which one's more important.
100%.
Right? And I had to learn too, like you shared in our conversation, you're not as important as you think you are, right? Each of us, and I had to figure out too, you know what? That marriage problem took years to culminate. I'm not going to fix it in this half hour, right? But I can be available when it's appropriate to my family now and to them later, to walk with them.
You'll hear people say all the time, right? If you died tomorrow, your employer would post a job posting. Like you're out of there. Like they're moving on. And I've never ever talked to like an older person in a nursing home or an older person, whatever, and they've said, man, I just really wish I would have worked a little harder when I was young. Like there's not a single person in the world that says that. They usually they're talking about some sort of regret that has to do with, I wish I would have spent more time doing this or hiking or doing a hobby, whatever it is. People don't regret they didn't work enough. They and then it's too late. And so now I just need to figure out how to stay in this exact phase. And I'm doing that by attempting to continue to put people around me that can help execute on the things so that I can not have to even say no to opportunities for business, but it doesn't mean that it's taking all of my specific time to do that. And I think that's crucial, understanding that my weakness is being able to say no. So if I want to say yes, can I equip other people to help make the things happen? So it doesn't mean that I have to quit working or quit having success in a business, but it doesn't have to always just rely on you. Like, I'm not that important. If I died tomorrow, I'm sure my employees would be like, well, here we go. We're going to continue. Like, it's just going to happen.
And so you've defined your win, you've learned to say no, and you've surrounded yourself with the people who can do the things that maybe you're not as strong at, or just filling in those spaces. What do you say to the person who's watching right now and is like, well, I'm not a business owner, so this doesn't work for me, or this isn't possible. I can't not work 100 hours a week.
Yeah, I would say if you're at a standpoint, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that aren't even looking to own their own business, and I don't recommend that to a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes to it. I think that everyone is probably closer than what they really think to doing it. And I think that if you're actually in a place where you're saying, my employer or my job literally requires me to work 80, 100 hours a week, I'd evaluate your workplace, because that's not healthy. It's not sustainable, and it's really not fair, in my opinion. And if you're at a place that isn't really valuing that time and your actual life and your mental health, that's a problem. And I'd say to just really look at it closely and say, this is my win. How can I, in my current position, move closer to that? And if the answer is I can't, then evaluate what that looks like to potentially shift things in some capacity.
Yeah, that's excellent. Hey, thanks so much, Scott. This has been fantastic. Stay tuned. We're going to come back and talk about how we can apply this to our lives.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website, lighthousetv.org, for more information.
Matt Emmons was a contender for the Olympic gold medal in one of the 2004 rifle shooting competitions. He had scored so well that coming into his last shot, all he needed to do was to hit the target to win. He aimed, steadied himself, and hit an 8.1, more than enough to walk away with the gold, if he had hit the right target. Somehow Matt had aimed at the target in the lane next to his by accident. This is a great reminder to us that it doesn't matter how successful we are on this earth if we're aiming at the wrong target. We don't walk away with the gold medal, we walk away with a whole lot of brokenness and regret. But thankfully, it doesn't have to end that way. We can define what it means to win with the life God has given us. I love how the Apostle Paul says it in Ephesians 5:15 through 17. Look carefully then how you walk, how you live your life, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Here are some steps that you can take today to begin aiming at the right life target tomorrow. First, you need to stop. One of the reasons our lives and relationships drift to places we never wanted them to end up is because we haven't stopped to examine God's will for the unique life that He's given us. So stop right now, get a cup of coffee, get a pen and a notepad, and get alone with God for 30 minutes. If you can't do that now, schedule it for a specific time in the next 7 days, write it on your calendar, and don't let anything else steal that time from you. This could be the most important 30 minutes of the rest of your life. Second, you need to reflect. Look carefully at how you are walking. Look at each major area of your life, your faith, your family, your work, your rest, and ask yourself these two questions for each area. If this area of my life continues in the same way it's going right now, what will it look like in 10 years? And is that the target I want to be aiming at? Third, you need to connect. Connect with God's will for your life by making the best use of the time God has given you. Ask yourself these questions for each area. What is the most important thing that I think God wants me to be doing in this area of my life? And what is the first smallest step I can take to begin moving toward that target? I'd also love for you to connect with me at onedaycloser.tv. I've created a course for helping people learn how to make the best use of the time God's given them, and I'd be happy to help you get started. Thank you so much for joining us for One Day Closer, where we're learning together how to use our one day closer to eternity to bring Jesus-infused hope and purpose to many.